Good afternoon to you. It is 4:06 now. News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, we will be joined, on the slate today. Two congressmen are set to join us. Troy Nehls is coming up at 5 o'clock. Bob Good, who is voting today, it appears, to remove Kevin McCarthy as Speaker, was supposed to join us right now, but they are literally in the midst of voting as we speak. He may join us at 5:30. All of this, of course, up in the air, as you might expect. We'll bring them in the second we can get these guys. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. This is the sound as we speak from the House floor.
Case. Yay. Caston. Yay.
All right, so the votes you're hearing right now are on the vote to oust Speaker McCarthy. There was an earlier vote, a procedural one, to table this motion from Matt Gaetz of Florida, and it failed. 11 Republicans voted to move forward with this vote. Will all 11 of those Republicans also be votes to remove McCarthy? We have yet to see. We'll find out. But if they are, he's done for. That's the end of his speakership. Of course, he could try and become Speaker again if he wants to, throw his hat in the ring or somebody wants to put him forward. But in order to become Speaker, you need, as we all kind of went through the motions in January, you need a majority of votes. You need a majority of votes. And at this point, McCarthy doesn't have that. So could be 11. All he needs to lose is 5 Republicans to lose the speakership. If he loses 11, he's definitely out. And just moments over the course of the last hour, really, there was a very robust debate on the House floor about all of this, where Republicans were debating amongst themselves about the merits of either keeping or ejecting Kevin McCarthy as Speaker of the House. And quite honestly, it was exactly what the American people deserve, this kind of debate. How many times does something happen in Washington where you feel like everything about it is orchestrated? Every day of the week, right? Where there's every single day there's some other scripted event or somebody gives a floor speech and all they're doing is trying to fundraise or whatever. They present a bill that they know has no chance of passage, but they are trying to send a message. There's theater. There's constant theater. But today, an actual live, robust debate between Republicans, some of them saying Kevin McCarthy's been a great speaker. He's done everything we could have asked. He's got a tough situation to deal with. He's got a narrow majority. He's got to navigate all of this. He's the best we could ask for. He's honored all of his commitments to me. I like this guy. On one side, that's what you have Republicans saying. On the other, you have a much smaller group of Republicans who are saying, well, wait a second. When he became Speaker, that was with our blessing, the smaller group of Republicans. He did it by promising that he would actually cut spending, that he would pass individual spending bills, that he would defund the 85,000 IRS cops who were being hired by the Biden administration to go after you, that he would do all of these things. And he's failed in many of his promises. He's failed on allowing us to view bills for 72 hours before they're brought up for a vote. He failed to get 12 appropriations bills passed. He didn't do that. He got 4 of them done. You had 9 months. He got 4 of them done out of the 12. And then you're going to say, we're just going to slam through government spending in the form of a continuing resolution that it continues to spend us into the ground? So an authentically good American debate finally happening on the floor of the Congress. And inside of that room, everybody's got their butt in a seat. It's the reason why we couldn't talk to Bob Good right now. It's because 435 members, or whatever the number is that's actually in the room right now, have to sit their rear ends in a seat and listen to these debates as they decide whether or not McCarthy should continue to be Speaker of the House. And the centerpiece of the debate is what's good for the American people? What's good for us? Because the current state of affairs is not. It definitely is not. I shudder to think about what my kid, my grandchildren, God willing, are going to have to deal with in the years ahead. Just during the Biden administration alone, we've seen a 20% hike in prices on everything. Everything. I saw the MSNBC host today, Chris Hayes, on X, Twitter. He's supposed to be the smart one. He wears glasses to demonstrate that. And he said, I just can't get over, I'm paraphrasing his tweet, I just can't get over the fact that inflation is going down and people still think the economy is bad. That's what he said. I can't get over that fact. Well, he is thoroughly disconnected from the cost of everything then. Because when you say inflation is going down, you're talking about the rate of its increase has subsided. It's not going up quite as quickly. Prices are still going up, but a little bit slower. That's the good news that the left is trying to preach to you. Why aren't you happy that your prices are going up a little slower? Because that's preposterous. If you can't afford your day-to-day life, then you're going to say, well, how did it get this way? I'm still buying the same stuff. I'm still putting the same amount of gas in my car. Why do I have less money? Why is it all going down? Why am I in debt? Why am I taking on all this credit card debt? Americans now are over $1 trillion in credit card debt. Many of them are not actually able to pay the bill. They're not able. So what does that mean? Well, interest accrues. Huge interest rates, 20% interest rates on credit cards. It is crushing. And we've got a country that is on a routine basis sold out by the people who are supposed to be our, quote, leaders, as Chuck Thies was saying earlier. Air quotes around leaders. They're supposed to be helping. They're supposed to be doing something good. They're supposed to be producing outcomes that are better for the rest of us, but they're not. They're only producing outcomes that are good for them. So confronting that is a worthwhile endeavor, I think. I do have a bunch of audio here of all of the events that have transpired here over the last 24 hours. I played some from Matt Gaetz for you. Let me see if I can. I'm going to dig here into the audio file because we have a massive amount today. Matt Gaetz was asked, hey, look, not every one of the people who were with you back in January, not every single one of them are with you now. What do you say to those conservatives who they fought with you to improve the promises coming out of McCarthy in January, but they're not for unseating McCarthy now? Here's what Gaetz had to say.
Mr. Gaetz, are you concerned that some conservatives who agree that McCarthy is in breach of these promises he made in January are not backing your effort? People like Chip Roy, Byron Donalds, Thomas Massie, obviously somebody who tried to oust Boehner, says that this could backfire on conservatives. Are you worried about that pressure and that fracture in conservatives actually undercutting?
No, listen, Chip Roy and Thomas Massie, we all want to get to the same place. We all want to have less spending. We want to return to the budget process that is in law. And I hold no ill will toward them if they make a different tactical choice than I've made. So if my dear friends, who I agree with on almost everything, Mr. Roy and Mr. Perry and Mr. Massie, want to own Kevin McCarthy, then that can be their choice, and they can make whatever choice they'd like.
Yeah, there's also a lot of posturing going on with, oh, well, if they vote to oust McCarthy, they're doing that with Democrats, because all Democrats, the Democrats today, they had a meeting this morning with Hakeem Jeffries, their party leader. They were told not to bring any notepads, pens, pencils, or recording devices, cell phones, anything into the room. This was just going to be a spoken word guidance. They will be told what to do. There will be no record kept. It's the most Democrat thing ever. And Jamal Bowman, no problem for him because he doesn't actually know how to write. But everybody else, they were told, no writing. And so they went in, and what they were told today is you're voting against McCarthy. So this idea that somehow McCarthy is going to work with Democrats and then come out of it and make all these concessions in order to keep the speakership, doesn't look like that's the case, because these Democrats have been told vote against him. And right now, that's what's happening. There is, among the votes at this literally at this moment, 77 votes to oust McCarthy, 70 to keep him. 70 to keep him. The Democrats are not siding with McCarthy here to hold on to him as the, quote, devil they know or anything like that. But if you want to play the game that, oh, well, Gaetz is voting for the same thing that Democrats want. Now, Gaetz obviously wants a Republican speaker, and I don't see these Republicans in any way agreeing to letting the Democrats pick the speaker. That would just be so stupid. And there's no way that's the outcome here, despite all of the fear-mongering on this subject. But if that's the game you want to play, you could also respond with, well, the CR, the massive government spending bill that was just passed this weekend, was passed with a majority Democrat support. The majority of the people who voted for that government spending bill were Democrats. Oh, you're in league with Democrats. Okay. That's just, honestly, in both cases, just a silly thing to say. Matt Gaetz not alone in saying he'll vote to oust McCarthy. Of course, Tim Burchett released a video on the site formerly known as Twitter today.
Hey, everybody. Tim Burchett. Today will be a vote on motion to vacate the chair, which is the speakership. And my thought process is like this. Kevin McCarthy's my friend, and I hate to lose him as a friend, but I had a choice between that and my conscience and what my conscience tells me to do. My conscience tells me that we're $33 trillion in debt. We took off the whole month of August knowing that September was going to come around. It does every year, the end of our budgetary year, fiscal year, and there is no urgency. And then we just do a continued resolution, kicking the can 45 days down the road, and then that will be right up against
yeah, and then letting the special interests write the whole damn bill.
Thanksgiving holiday, and then we'll put in an omnibus, which is a big bill. It's more spending, more grease, more lobbyists, and more special interest. And the big boys will stay in power. And at some point, we just got to say enough is enough, folks.
Is that unreasonable? Is anything about what he said unreasonable? No, it's entirely reasonable. And it was the expectation when they granted McCarthy the speakership in January, he would keep his promise on this subject. Let me go to Larry in Potomac now, line 3. Larry, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show, sir.
Hey, Vince, how are you today?
I'm good, Larry. What's on your mind?
Yeah, well, a little bit of chaos, isn't there, going on up there among Republicans?
For sure.
You know, having worked on the Hill for 8 years, a long time ago, admittedly, you know, you are generally very precise with your words. And you and I agree 99.9% of the time. But I think you were a little bit off the mark when you said that Kevin McCarthy promised that he would pass 12 appropriations bills. He can't pass 12 appropriations bills. Only a majority of the House, 218 members, can pass 12 appropriations bills. Mm-hmm. He can't get them out of committee. Only the Appropriations Committee can get them out of the committee through the Rules Committee and on the floor.
Sure.
When they're ready. And oh, by the way, there was a conservative continuing resolution that cut the proposed budget by 30%, had very strong border wall protections and other conservative provisions, and it was Matt Gaetz and 6 or 7 other Republicans who killed it.
But Larry, you would agree with me. Larry, you would agree with me that CR had no chance of actually becoming law, correct?
But that's the point. Any of the things that you're talking about to cut, billions of dollars. They have no. It had a chance to pass the House and give conservatives in the Senate something to go to McConnell with and say, we're not doing what McConnell wants to do.
Right.
And I'll tell you what was unreasonable about the congressman who you just had. You said, was anything unreasonable about what he said? Yes. It was unreasonable for him to assume that in 45 days. We're not going to have 12 appropriations bill and that we are going to have an omnibus bill. In that case, it's a different story. If there's an omnibus bill, which is different than a short-term continuing resolution bill, then it's a different story. But Kevin McCarthy,
but the fiscal year, as you know, Larry, having worked in it, the fiscal year ends in September. They had 9 months to do this, and you point out that it's not Kevin McCarthy's job on his own to pass it. You're right about that. He needs the Republicans to work together in Congress to get these 12 bills passed. But where was the bully pulpit on this subject, Larry? Where was the pressure campaign to get these Republicans to actually do their job? It's well within the confines of the Speaker at the House to do it. And instead, he did spend a lot of his time pushing along these investigations, making sort of vague impeachment threats to people like Alejandro Mayorkas and Joe Biden.
Well, you may ask where the bully pulpit was to get it done, but I will tell you that there may have been 50 House Republicans that wouldn't have voted for those bills, and they wouldn't have passed anything. Because it's not just those 11 people who believe they're right. So, when you're herding 220, cats, as it were, mm-hmm. It's not a question of, okay, I can put up what I want and everybody's going to vote for it. He's in an impossible situation. He's done a very good job, all things considered. We had a conservative we could have passed that bill in the House if all of the Republicans had passed that short-term CR with a 30% cut. But you're saying, Vince, why aren't we passing bills that cut the? Why don't we have bills in law already that are cutting the deficit and the debt?
I'm saying that he made a commitment. What I'm saying, Larry, is that he made a commitment to move along these 12 regular order budget bills. That hasn't happened since 1996. And in making that commitment, he said the consequence for that, if I fail to fulfill these promises, we now lower the threshold for a motion to vacate. In other words, Matt Gaetz can do the very thing he's doing today because McCarthy agreed as a condition of the promises that he made that if he fails, they can do it. Matt Gaetz is literally fulfilling that arrangement.
I'm not sure he would. I'm not sure whether because the fiscal year is over. The next fiscal year appropriations bills are not done yet. 45 days or whatever it is of the next fiscal year are funded, but not. If he can't do it then, that's a different story. But they couldn't pass a Homeland Security appropriations bill that they wanted to bring up. It was a very good bill. I'm sure you supported it. You would have supported it. But they couldn't do it because of Matt Gaetz. So,
Yeah, look, Larry, I get where you're coming from. I think my point is that I don't know about you, but we're tired of the status quo. A lot of us are. I am, for sure. And this idea that we keep on jamming through CRs and then eventually get to a place where lobbyists write all these spending bills and there's no opportunity for consideration, no 72 hours, no 12 passed in regular order. Washington is hopelessly broken. If we're going to do anything to address it, we have to confront it now. And the fact that it got this far, Larry, the fact that we got to a CR where you can hold people's jobs out and say these people are not going to get paid unless we ram this through, that's a total scam. That's a hostage crisis designed to sustain corrupt relationships in Washington rather than for Washington to do its job for the American people. That's the reason I object to the fact that we're even here. And yes, it's a challenging job being Speaker of the House. I agree with that. Lots of drama. Hey, look, I realize, and I don't mind it at all, because this is what makes us different than the left. There's going to be a lot of disagreement on this subject. I'm very happy about that. I'll take a robust debate over tyrannical censorship any day of the week. Coming up, more on the move to oust Kevin McCarthy as Speaker. It looks like enough Republicans have voted to support it. We'll see how it ends up. The breaking news continues. Good afternoon to you. It is 4:35 now. News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up today, a couple of Republican congressmen are set to join us. But again, that's a moving target as the vote takes place on the House floor on Kevin McCarthy's future. Troy Nehls and Bob Good are penciled in for 5 o'clock and 5:30, respectively. You can also be penciled into the show if you dial us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Right now, 189 yay votes to unseat Kevin McCarthy, 181 nay votes. A lot of Republicans out there saying that they don't like this fight. They're very concerned about it for any number of reasons. One, it could just be, the infighting only helps the Democrats. It's a PR victory for them. And going into the next election, the last thing we need is division and civil war. We need people to be unified. And I hear that. Although I will say, if you think that this fight is the one where people are looking at it and going, boy, I didn't know Washington was chaotic. Like, if you've missed all of Washington for a very long time now, it is amazing. Although I do see, for instance, here's an example of that. Ann Coulter tweeting today. Please stop doing this, Matt Gaetz. You make great points, but your fellow Republicans aren't all in safe seats like yours, she said. Your number one job, win majorities in the House and Senate, then get a better speaker, says Ann Coulter. I guess a lot of this comes down to whether or not you think our country has much time left, right? It's kind of like, hey, if you just wait a couple of elections, maybe things will get better. Is not a very appealing argument to a lot of us because it does feel like we're on the precipice, right? Like our country is in a free fall. We're in descent, and we desperately need somebody to get up to the cockpit and get us back in the air, right? I'm going to play for you some audio that's separate from this fight over Kevin McCarthy right now, but important about the state of our country. Tucker Carlson had an interview that he just posted yesterday with the brilliant Victor Davis Hanson. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was VDH, as we call him, at his best. And he was talking specifically about how to understand who the left is right now. And he calls them the Jacobin left. We're in a Jacobin takeover of the country, alluding to the French Revolution and the effort to basically defend the state at all costs. No matter what it takes, you have to defend state power at all costs. That's the way the left operates now. It has for some time. And that means that anything that's an impediment to state power needs to be destroyed. Any rule that's useful for growing state power needs to be utilized. And then you make these broad appeals to, we're trying to defend democracy. And when they say things like that, what they're really saying is they want to protect the power of the state over the people. That's what it is. It's literally an inversion of what they claim they're protecting. Here's Victor Davis Hanson I think, once again, another eloquent assessment of our country.
Tell us what you think is at stake here. What's the overview?
Well, I think they've come to the conclusion that Trump represented an existential threat, and by association, half the country did to their vision of what they want to transform us into. And so they feel that any means necessary are justified by their noble spiritual ends. And therefore, they call it critical legal theory. Just essentially, Tucker says there's rules against stealing only because rich people don't steal, and therefore it's okay to steal. And modern monetary theory says print as much money, and eventually rich people will have to pay higher taxes or have their 401ks appropriated. Same thing with the border. Short term, everybody's mad at the border, but in dark rooms, they're saying to each other, in 10 years, everybody's going to appreciate what we did. We brought in 10 to 15 million new constituents. So, and I guess to put it all together, they feel that they're at a stage now where their agenda does not appeal to 51% of the people, and they either have to bring in new constituencies or change the system, the entire system of which we are acculturated to retain power, and that's what they're willing to do.
Right, and it's not about the will of the governed. It's not about the will of the people. It's about how do we change the circumstances so we can ignore the will of the people. I mean, and if that's the MO of the left, which it is, then as you see these poll numbers come out about approval of Democrats and approval of Joe Biden, you start to realize, well, this is when Democrats become their scariest, because the further the voters go from being interested in even supporting any Democrat cause, the more likely it is that Democrats are going to try and turn to tyrannical means in order to keep power, because they don't have the assent of the governed, the consent of the governed. New low Joe. Another headline on this topic. Biden's economic approval dives to the lowest point of his entire presidency. Daily Caller. President Joe Biden's economic approval ratings have hit an all-time low as his administration continues to push the claim that Bidenomics is working, according to a poll released by Investors Business Daily on Monday. Approximately 56% of Americans now disapprove of Biden's economic policies. 56%. Just 24% approve. You know what that means. The fence sitters disapprove, but they don't want to say it because they probably voted for the guy. It's a swift drop from the reported 50 to 31% in September, according to Investors Business Daily. The low ratings underscore the problems straining the U.S. economy as inflation continues to rise, while wages are, by and large, failing to keep pace. Yeah, almost entirely. The average American family has lost, something like $7,000 a year? E.J. Antoni has crunched the numbers. That's a lot of money in terms of real cash, the ability to purchase things. That's a ton of money. In a country where, what's the median income in the country? $60,000? It's $50,000, $60,000. So you lose $7,000? $7,000 for your family? That's massive. Inflation has risen from approximately 3.2% in July to 3.7% in August, well above the Federal Reserve's target of 2%. The Biden administration has added $5 trillion to the current national debt of $33 trillion, roughly double of the $2.48 trillion increase during former President Donald Trump's tenure. And Trump had 4 years in office. And a lot of that spending, to the extent that occurred during COVID, when the government started cutting massive checks on a bipartisan basis in order to make up for the government-imposed shutdowns of the entire economy. Now, you can either read that as a justifiable excuse for massive spending during the Trump era or a warning never to do that again, because that was just disaster stacked upon disaster. But the Biden administration has added $5 trillion, double the amount that occurred during Trump's time in office for 4 years. Biden has done it in just over 2. And in fact, that's the centerpiece in part of the debate we're seeing today on the House floor, which is, what are we going to do about this? People are legitimately suffering. Victor Davis Hanson said to Tucker yesterday, people don't realize this, a lot of people don't realize this, we are in the middle, as we speak, of a revolution of a kind.
We're very naive, Tucker. We don't realize that we're in the middle of a revolution. We think that we're still playing within the same sidelines or parameters, and it's not. Everything's under negotiation, whether it's the Senate filibuster, the Electoral College, new states coming in, the size of the Supreme Court, voting IDs, the genders, the foundational data of the United States, pronoun usage, from the trivial to the existential. We're in the middle of a cultural, economic, political revolution.
Very interesting. That line about everything is negotiable is I think it's a good thing to contemplate. He's right. All of reality itself to the left is negotiable, that there are no hard rules about anything. There's no fundamental truth about anything. God himself doesn't exist to large portions of the American left, certainly many of the people who wield the levers of power. That it's all kind of one giant act of narcissism. Whatever I want to be, I am. It doesn't matter what reality says. In fact, reality doesn't even exist here. Everything's self-determination, including my gender. I can make up a gender, make up a name, make up a pronoun, make up a race. Where, there's already been people, there have been Rachel Dolezals out there doing that. I'm black. And she becomes the head of the NAACP in her town. You don't think that's where this goes next? I love how the left invents these delineations. Well, you can change your gender, but you can't change your race, but race is a social construct. What? What is this logic? There is no logic. It's incoherent. Everything is up for debate. It's all a power struggle, all of it. What empowers me at this moment? Okay, I'm going to go with that. So that's why the rules are constantly changing. They tell us they can control the weather by building electric cars, and then a couple months down the road, they say we can't control the weather by building electric cars because electric cars actually produce more carbon than internal combustion engine vehicles, and it's not going to be that way, and now you got to stay in your house, and you can't leave, and yada, yada, yada. They just make it up as they go along. And the end pursuit is always more power, right? And especially with the climate stunt. Especially. Our friend Daniel Turner sent me a piece this week that the Biden administration has banned its appointees from attending fossil fuel conferences. They're not allowed to go to any conference that promotes fossil fuels. No meetings that promote fossil fuels. And I'm sitting here going, what were the chances that Biden officials were all, buying tickets to fossil fuel conferences? Like, can't wait to be at the fossil fuel conference. I don't think that's happening. Maybe the Biden administration should release a statement banning their officials from going to pro-life conferences as well. No supporting babies in this administration. You're not allowed to do that. I don't think you have to tell them. I think everybody knows. All these political appointees, they're fully on board with the abortion agenda. So it's all negotiable, says Victor Davis Hanson. Every single piece of reality is up for negotiation. And that's not the way normal people view it, is it? Like, you know what the hard and fast rules are. You know that your time on this earth is short for all of us in the grand scheme of things. You know that there's value in the way you conduct your life. You know that taking care of your children and seeing to their futures is important. You know that having a respect for the fact that there's a higher power over you is essential. You know that using the gifts that you have to glorify God and to just to be grateful that you have those gifts, to demonstrate that gratitude. That's an essential piece of being a productive and good and flourishing human being. You recognize that. The left wants to put a stop to all of that thought entirely. That's all up for negotiation. In fact, it can be dispensed with for power. Now, as we're speaking, the breaking news is now coming through. Kevin McCarthy has been ousted, at least for the moment, as Speaker of the House. There were 216 yay votes to remove him, 210 opposed. Let me check in. Let's check in with the audio now from the House floor. And
pursuant to the rule, acts as Speaker pro tem until the election of a new Speaker, and bestows the authorities of the office of Speaker upon the Speaker pro tem to the extent necessary and appropriate to that end. In the opinion of the Chair, prior to proceeding to the election of a Speaker, it would be prudent to first recess for the relative caucus and conferences to meet and discuss the path forward. Accordingly, pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule 1, the Chair declares the House in recess subject to the call of the Chair.
There you go, the gavel. And now these parties will begin their meeting in their individual conferences. They'll begin strategizing what they do next. That includes, obviously, the Democrat caucus. That'll be just, like Hakeem Jeffries for Speaker. Like, okay, whatever. That's the stupid meeting. The Republicans are going to have an interesting meeting. And not only will they have an interesting meeting, but the contents of that meeting are going to begin to undoubtedly leak in the near term. We'll see. I have no idea what their schedule is here for how they're going to meet, what they're going to do coming up. But they have to elect a new Speaker. That has to happen next. So that's the situation right now in the United States House. The breaking news, Kevin McCarthy has been ousted as the Speaker of the House in a vote, 216 to 210, a majority vote to oust Kevin McCarthy. Well, yeah, a lot of chaos on Capitol Hill right now. Kevin McCarthy ousted as Speaker. I'm seeing all sorts of footage coming in now. Matt Gaetz speaking to the press out on the steps of the Capitol. Kevin McCarthy, it looks like just having been chased through Statuary Hall. Everybody's trying to figure out what happens next here. But Kevin McCarthy, again, ousted as Speaker of the House. Let's take a phone call. Donna is in Frederick on line 1. Donna, good afternoon to you on this very interesting day. Hello.
Hi, Vince. Yes, interesting is the understatement. I was watching this process, and, it brought a lot of questions to my mind, like, who actually represents us, we the people? Who owns them, they, those in D.C.? And I kept thinking about promises made and promises kept. And that terminology has more value today than it has in probably a very long time. So I urge people to kind of look at this process. Go watch it on your TV. It's amazing. And it's a giant reveal. It tells you an awful lot about what's actually going on in D.C. that's probably not been exposed to us in a very, very long time.
I will say I am grateful for a robust public debate. I do like seeing it. I'm sorry, people say, "Oh, there's too much drama." No, I just need to see it. Let it all air out, and let us be in a position to decide here. And look, like I said, Donna, there's plenty of people who I know and love on my side of the aisle who disagree with me on this, and I'm not even fully in the we need to throw McCarthy out, but I am hearing Matt Gaetz's argument out. And I think delegitimizing him and just saying he's a clown, he's a charlatan, or all these words that people have been using towards him, at least listen to the argument he's making. And boy, he's making an eloquent and I think highly rational argument for, hey, we were given a number of promises. They weren't fulfilled. This is the way you hold the guy accountable, and we're doing it. So to me, that makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah, it's about us. It's not about them. It's about us. And I think that's what we haven't heard from D.C. And I'm going to say in decades, really. We've been watching this gamesmanship go on for forever. And the more people observe this and tune into it, the better off we're going to be. A lot of these pills are hard to swallow, but that's reality.
Well, something definitely has to change. Thank you, Donna. I appreciate the call. Coming up, we'll see. Do we have – I'm getting confirmation now. Members of Congress set to join us to discuss the breaking news of what they just participated in, a vote on Kevin McCarthy's future. He is now no longer Speaker of the House. An historic moment. We'll cover it coming up.